All right, perfect. And I'm seeing a good amount of people in here, so let's get going. Welcome, everybody. This is another monthly MotoQuest webinar. We've been doing these about once a month now, and we're super excited about them. This month's topic is near and dear to our hearts. As an Alaska-based company, Prudhoe Bay is a large part of the MotoQuest story, and it's a large part of the business that we do up in Alaska in our backyard. So really excited to be going over Prudhoe Bay with all you guys. I have just a couple of quick little reminders and announcements before we get going, and I hand things off to Phil. First of which is I'm sure many of you are going to have lots of questions that pop up throughout the webinar. If you do have a question, please ask it. If you have that question, there's probably 5 other people that have that exact same question. So please ask the question. We will stop periodically throughout the presentation to answer those questions. So if we don't answer it right away, rest assured we have seen your question. We're just waiting to a natural break in the presentation to answer those. The right way to ask that question is to use the Q&A feature down below. That's the way that we would prefer that you ask us those questions. That way it doesn't clog up the chat. And it'll keep everything moving nice and smooth. And right there, you can see on screen, there's that button that we'd like for you to use, please. A couple other announcements. This is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or you're coming in late midway through the presentation, don't worry. We are recording this whole thing. We will put it up on our YouTube channel later, and we want this to be a resource that lives on the internet for anybody who's curious about riding Prudhoe Bay. So rest assured there. Last couple of things here. If you're watching this on mobile, if you're looking at this on a phone, it's going to be a much more enjoyable experience for you if you turn that phone sideways and go into landscape mode. That way you'll be able to see Phil's presentation a lot better and all the nuances that go on with that. So go and flip your phone sideways. And with that, I will hand it off to our founder, Mr. Freeman.
Thanks, Dax. Thanks, Brendan. Welcome to the Prudhoe Bay webinar. And this is exciting for me because when I started riding motorcycles, I never thought I would go to the Arctic Ocean. And now I have been there 17 times. And I wouldn't say monomaniacal, but I would say that I have a little bit of advice for those who want to go up there, either on their own, or with their friends, or with us. But let's start first with this. Whether life is short or long, all we possess is the present, and all that matters is what we do in it. Now, we're talking about the Dalton Highway today. The Dalton Highway is 414 miles of chip seal, dirt surface, and pavement, and it goes all the way from Fairbanks all the way to Prudhoe Bay. And Prudhoe Bay is a town, but also there are some other names it's known as. It's also known as Dead Horse. It used to be Dead Horse because there was a trucking company called Dead Horse Trucking, and they named Prudhoe Bay after that. So if someone refers to Dead Horse, they mean Prudhoe Bay. And if someone says Prudhoe Bay, they mean Dead Horse. You also want to know that you might want to know Dalton Highway is also known as the Haul Road because they're hauling stuff up there all the time. And for years, that road was not open to the public. But then there was a court case and they opened up the road to public past the Yukon River. And now everyone in the world can go there. Though the case that the mining companies tried to make was it was not a usual road. And the road is a little bit steeper than most, and it's made for tractor trailers to get stuff up to Prudhoe Bay. And here's a shot of the route that we offer at MotoQuest as a tour. And but you know, we do one way up. It takes at least 3 to 4 days all the way up, and about 3 to 4 days all the way back down. And we incorporate the Denali Highway on our route. But take a closer look at the highway itself, and you'll see at the bottom of the picture here, Fairbanks, Alaska. And for a while there, you're on the Elliott Highway, and then it branches off to go to Manly Hot Springs. And then the official start of the Dalton Highway, you have another 414 miles to go all the way to Prudhoe Bay. And this is one of the most remote places in the world. You're going to cross the Arctic Circle, and you're also going to go all the way to the Arctic Ocean. And this is no Sunday drive. And actually, I made a video a while back called Prudhoe Bay, No Sunday Drive, and it's in our YouTube, and it's got a lot of first person footage that should give you an idea of what you're going to experience. It's very highly dependent on whether weather is nice or not, or whether you run into road construction. One motorcyclist will go up one day and come back down and say it is just fine, and then it starts to rain, or you get road construction, or both, or even a forest fire, and the next thing you know, you're really into a real adventure, and you're way up there. There is not a lot of infrastructure up there. This is a true adventure, and this is why we're doing this webinar. And I want to answer your questions because it's a dream of many people to go all the way up there, but the reality is it's not a Sunday drive. It's definitely an accomplishment. I want to go through a couple photos here before I stop at a list. A while back, I wrote an article called The Do's and Don'ts of the Dalton Highway. And I want to go through these one by one and pause for questions. But before we do that, let's do an appetizer of some of the sights that you will see on this very unique road. This is in the Brooks Range. And once you cross it going north, there are no more trees. You are on the north slope. This is a picture of coming out of the Brooks Range at Attican Pass. This is an idea of some of the conditions you're going to run up against. And yes, that is mushy. And you're going to see a lot of wide open country. And for the most part, it'll seem like the road is never used until you see two tractor trailers coming from opposite directions. And can you believe it? It will snow in July. This is a different environment altogether. And when you come up in the summer, the sun will not go down. And then if you make it all the way to Prudhoe Bay, you're going to be able to stand right in front of this sign at the hardware store. Now, Prudhoe Bay is largely a workman's camp, but back in the day, there was 1 year-round resident, and it was the cat who lived at the hardware store. And the caribou are migrating up there during the summer. It's really spectacular. You're going to see other critters as well. Just keep your eyes out. Those who keep their eyes open for wildlife will see wildlife. And you're going to have some open country. There are segments of road up there, this is chip seal, that are as fun and beautiful and scenic as you'll ever have motorcycling. It's just that you're so far north, there isn't a lot of traffic. You are out there. This is a muskox, and you will run across these guys along the highway. And look at that. If you get there early, you can enjoy the Arctic Ocean. How nice is that? Okay, so let's move on to the list. And let's take the first bit of questions. But I'm going to read through these real quick. And these are tips that I learned over the years. Watching other travelers and actually watching my own groups over the years. These things are standard. Don't put your weight up high when you pack your bike. You might even consider not bringing stuff that you have with you just for the Dalton Highway, just because you don't want to add the weight up high. Choose your tires wisely. Go with an emergency plan. Make sure you have dirt riding skills. Don't forget about the fuel stops, and clean your radiator and your air intake. Choose the right bike. Don't push it. Do be aware of truck traffic, and do outfit your ride. I'm going to go one by one in more detail of these, but I would like to take any questions up until this point.
Yeah, Phil, just one question so far. What is the ideal month to ride to Prudhoe Bay?
That's a very good question. And we do, it's a different environment up there. So old man winter can show up any day of the week. But I wouldn't go up there. We were starting around the start of June, but that's still too early, we believe. I think that the best time is to wait maybe 2 weeks into June, and then going up there anything after the first week in August, you're really at the whims and fancies of the weather. You could literally get snowed in up there.
Yeah. Yep. And just for a little bit of context, if you decide to rent a bike from MotoQuest and ride up to Prudhoe Bay on your own on a rental motorcycle, those rentals have to be done in June or July. We do not allow them any earlier or any later than that if you're renting the bike from us. So
Yeah.
that's the only question for now, Phil. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. We are very proud that we offer a service with bikes that are properly outfitted for individual rentals to go up there. But keep in mind, we're putting on fresh knobby tires, and then we also ask that you do it in a minimum of 6 days from Anchorage, 3 days up, 3 days back. And the reason is pace yourself. And I will go over that and that's number 8 on the list. Don't push it. Okay, I'm going to go to the first one here. And it's common knowledge. Don't put your weight up high. Have every ounce of your weight as low and centered as possible because you're going to be going along and then all of a sudden the road conditions are going to change extremely, and it may be for the good or the bad. I try to explain it as 700 yards of terror. But what I mean is you're going to go onto a greasy spot. This doesn't happen every time with every rider depending on weather, but what bike do you want to be on for those 700 yards? That's really your question. uh, So here's an idea. Look at that road surface and look at that weight up high. Now, it's doable and it's being done, but honestly, I wouldn't do it. I would keep that weight off the top. Whatever's in those bags, you can consolidate and put in your panniers and leave that stuff in Fairbanks before you make your run to Prudhoe Bay. I've seen plenty of very experienced riders go all the way up there and they've ridden the world and they think they can do anything. And then they get a little bit fatigued and they hit some slop. And then their motorcycle is in the bushes and they have a $1,400 bill to get a wrecker up there from Fairbanks to get it. And they may or may not leave in a helicopter. It is no joke up there. Do everything you can in your power. Here's a couple Harley Davidsons in this picture. I do not think that's the correct bike to bring up there. I'm not against Harley. I'm against using a knife in a gunfight. Here's another example. The owner of this bike did knobby tires. Great. No, there's absolutely no protection for rocks or anything underneath by the muffler, and the tail, the pipes. And look how high up that weight is, including a gas can. I I took a picture of this because I was shaking my head. I thought there's no way I would ride this up there. It's being done, and I know that some of you are planning to do something like this, but I would say, hey man, you may be really good at what riding, but you're going to Alaska and you're going way off the grid. These are different rules up here. Be conscious of it. This one, it's that top box. Ricky might get mad at me for showing this one, but the top box isn't ideal. I would do panniers, lateral panniers instead of keeping your weight up top. But if you look at it, at least they got a skid plate in there, and they're ready to take rocks. You don't want to have anything exposed because you're going to be throwing rocks at your machine, and your motorcycle will never be the same by the time it gets off the Dalton. Are there any questions?
Got one more question in the chat here. So if you do find yourself overloaded and you're about ready to head up the Dalton Highway, do you have a recommendation of where you might be able to like leave some of your gear behind in Fairbanks while you go up and then come back down again?
That's a great question. There used to be a guy, I don't know if he's still in business, that used to change tires out right there north of Fairbanks. I'm not sure if he's still in business or not. Maybe we could do a little research, but we used to recommend that place so that people could ditch their gear. Otherwise, let me get back to you on that one because you can usually ask a hotel to hold on to your stuff, and it's not unreasonable for you to go get a tire change out at the local motorcycle shop and ask them to store your gear. These guys, they'll help you. Everyone will help you because going up there is quite an adventure.
Yeah, Brendan just kind of let me know behind the scenes. I guess that gentleman's name was Dan Armstrong, and he is out of business, unfortunately.
Oh, darn it.
But again, if you're going up the Dalton, you're probably going to end up staying in Fairbanks. And like you said, Phil, asking your hotel or your accommodations if you could leave a bag there for a couple of days, I generally don't think you'd have any issues with that.
No.
That's all we got for now.
Okay. Number two is choose your tires wisely. At MotoQuest, we don't mess around any longer. We put knobby tires on. You're going to have fresh knobby tires on your way up the highway. You're going to wear off the brand new little nubs on them, and by the time you get to the Dalton, you're going to be glad that during certain times on that highway you have a full knobby. You can do it without knobbies. You can do it with a 40-60 dirt versus pavement sort of tire, but um, you're going up there. You can arrange to have these tires switched out or run them down. You can see that you know this is a full knobby, but you can also see that there's a plug in that knobby. Um, you're going to want to bring everything to be self-sustained up there. Um, but you're going to also see that, everything's fine. You're on a really sunny day. And then all of a sudden you come across road construction. There's always going to be road construction. And the road construction can very often be the most dangerous part of your trip. Look how sloppy that is. That's exactly what we're talking about. So when you want to choose, what tire, consider that surface right there. And when you get behind a water truck and a grader, it is not very comfortable on street tires. You're going to be all over the place. So a knobby tire. And this is also another shot of just the gravel. You're going to be riding hundreds of miles of gravel. More and more they're chip sealing it. And chip seal is a very cheap form of asphalt. And it is not any safer on your or better on your tires in that you can run a little bit faster, but you're going to have potholes that you're going to come across that will dent your rims and it will pinch your tires. And also, I mean, if you come in the first 2 weeks of June, you might run into something like this. Or if you're leaving if you try to go up the last 2 weeks of August, this is Adigan Pass. It's doable, but it's not comfortable. You can see by the eyes of this rider, he's truly having an adventure. Any other questions filtering in?
Nothing quite yet.
Okay, great. So the next order of business is, go with an emergency plan. Go with a buddy, bring an inReach or a spot so that your loved ones know if you get in trouble, you can get at least somebody knows. And I say bring a sat phone. You can rent one in Anchorage. You can rent one in Fairbanks, I believe, or have one. When you're out there, there's not much happening because things can happen. Things do get slick. Bikes do go off the road. Here's an example. This is a nice little warning, but yes, motorcyclists can go up there on their own, but be on your guard. And I'm not trying to, I just want people to respect what the decisions they've made. I also want you to go up there on a motorcycle. But be aware, this is not like any other road that I've ever been on. You're going to have wildlife. You're going to have potholes in the chip seal, and you're going to have slick sections. And there are EMS services out there, but you do not want to use them. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah, we got one question in the chat. A gentleman asking about, how would you compare the level of difficulty of the Dalton Highway to something like a BDR? I think he asked about the Oregon BDR or the Washington
Okay.
BDR, but
Yeah.
how would that stack up?
Yeah, I would say that it depends on weather. It's highly dependent on your what kind of road construction is going on with that, like a water truck and a grader, because that's sloppy. And I would say that the BDR maybe is easier during the road construction because it's not so slimy. Um, if you get up there and there's not a lot of road construction and it's dry, you won't even think twice. You'll go, well, that Freeman tried to scare me, but there was nothing to be scared about. But you don't know. I would say that technically the BDR is more difficult. However, what gets you on the Dalton or gets other drivers is that the sun doesn't go down. You push it and you get fatigued because there's no place to stop. And then all of a sudden you hit that 700 yards of slop. And if you're not on the gas, then you're going to have trouble. And you're usually going faster than you would be on the BDR. So the consequences are more. So it's really the surprise factor. But if you can do the BDR, you can. I've taken somebody on the Dalton that never rode dirt before. Now I won't do that again, but I just wanted to make a point. It's not that technical, and they were on a very light 225cc bike. But be ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add to that a little bit, I would say, I think it's kind of apples and oranges comparing the Dalton to a BDR, right? The Dalton Highway it's a wide graded road. It's pretty wide open. BDRs tend to be a lot more vertical, right? Going up and down mountainsides. They're usually like 2-track logging or mining roads, something like that. So it's a little different. Brendan had a good little quote that he just threw up that, the challenge on the Dalton is duration and speed over technical skills a lot of the time.
True that. It's more of a marathon than a sprint.
And we got one more question that just popped up in the chat here from Aaron. And he's asking about the slop that you're talking about, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any specific tire recommendations? Do you need like a true DOT knobby, or can you get away with like more of a 50-50 tire for the adventure bike folks?
You can we've run them all, and I would say that we haven't had more accidents with one or another. I would say though that when you're on an organized tour with us, we take all the weight off the bikes, so that's the advantage that we bring.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
can tell you, like for all the rental motorcycles and for the guided tours, we use Shinko 805s. So we go a little more aggressive than a 50-50 tire. And that's what I would personally recommend for somebody. We got Steven in the chat asking a question about Starlink, interestingly enough. If you have Starlink, do you need a sat phone? Can you talk maybe just a little more about sat phones
well,
in general?
that is a new technology, and you should be able to link up with Starlink. You're not going to have trouble with trees in the way, I can tell you that. So you should be able to reach the sky. So Starlink is a very good resource as well, I would think. That's widely used in Alaska all over. So
Yep, and Starlink should work into the Arctic Circle. Sometimes there can be issues with that, and certain GPS phones I think used to not work in the Arctic Circle, but Starlink should, no problem. We got one more question from Steven asking: Is the trip easier or harder on a large GS versus a smaller GS?
well, it depends on the rider and what they're used to. I think largely, I prefer lighter bikes. If you were to hand me a GS 750 versus a 1300, I would take the 750. And the reason being is because it's lighter. and you can kind of move it around. I've done it on both, and the weight on those 1300s with that opposable twin is really nice, and it doesn't seem to be too much of a factor in that, you know, you're pretty well centered. But I do prefer the lighter bikes. We used to run KLRs, the 650 Kawasaki KLR, and I would take that over any other bike. And if you were to give me the Suzuki DR 650, it is even more of an off-road type bike. I would feel that that's a safer bike.
All right, perfect. I think that's all we got for now. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to show this picture too, because you're going to see that there's gravel down the middle, and then you see the side of that road there. That road is pretty soft, and it's about 4 inches of gravel. And if you get into that, it'll huck you into the bushes. Even an expert rider will lose it on that. So when you're going down the road, see that truck there? That's an oil servicing truck. Those guys are going to pass you, and they're going to throw rocks at you, and you're going to need to, you know, be nice and move over a little bit. But there's a fine line between you and the hard pack and that 4 inches of no fun that is lining the road all the way. And then you're always going to run into road construction. There's always going to be a new grader. So as soon as you think you're in the clear, you come over the rise and there's a water truck and a grader doing their magic. Yeah, this is a good example. This is what's going on up there. And they're constantly doing it. That road is changing all the time. And they're trying to keep it in a condition where all of those ice road truckers can get up there. And they make a berm in the middle, and sometimes you need to cross over that berm, and that'll put a little lump in your throat or give you a little bit of a smile, depending on what kind of disposition you are. But that is what's going on. Okay. Any questions by chance?
Nope, no new questions.
Okay. So don't forget about fuel. You're going to go to some of the most remote parts of North America, and you're going to have sections of highway that have no infrastructure for 240 and 250 miles. And you're going to need to make the distance between the two gas stations. Most motorcycles that have 5-gallon tanks won't reach that if you are going to ride about 60 miles an hour or more. And our tours, we bring gas, and we have a lunch spot, and we rendezvous and top everybody off. If you're renting from us, we suggest that you purchase a small 2-gallon gas tank, and you strap it to your bike and only use it between Coldfoot and Prudhoe Bay. That's that last leg. And even though you're getting gas at the source, believe it or not, it's more expensive. And I'm going to show you all the gas stops that you have north of basically the Yukon River north. This is the Yukon River, and you can get gas here and a cheeseburger. And you can also get gas in Coldfoot, and that'll be your last gas until Prudhoe Bay. And then you'll make it all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, and here's your gas station. There's actually 2 in town. This is the bigger one of the 2. And here's the other one. It's over by the airport, and it's a credit card situation with no attendant. And this is in the middle of the summer. So you get a crosswind of about 48 degrees, and you're enjoying the summer on the North Slope. Any questions?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, moving on. So they use a thing called calcium chloride on the dirt sections up there, and what it's supposed to do is bind the dirt so that it doesn't kick up dust. And it actually, during dry periods, it turns it into sort of it's almost like an asphalt. And it's really great to ride on. But if it gets wet, it gets a little slickery. Okay. So you want to, here's a picture of a truck laying down a bunch of calcium chloride. We're riding through it. This stuff will eat into your motorcycle. It is very corrosive and it's hungry. And it'll get into everything. It will get into your air take. Look at that. It'll stop your motorcycle. And so, really, one of the biggest challenges is to clean your radiator when you're up in Prudhoe. And the thing about Prudhoe is it's not really a real town. It's got a couple warehouses, and they're not driven by customer service. They are there to pump oil and work on their own trucks and equipment. But if you go up there with hat in hand, you can knock on their door and ask if you can get a water hose. And you may be told no, but you will eventually get a yes. And if you don't clean that radiator out, you can see how dirty this is. It will cake on there and then it will bake on there. And then you are frozen. It will heat up your engine and then you are dead in the water. Okay, number 7 is choose the right bike. Now, that question kind of was posed earlier, but a lighter bike, I feel, is a better choice. However, if you're going on a round the world trip, you kind of want a bigger bike that's more comfortable, but you want to be ready for those 700 yards. So it's a fine balance. You just need to make a choice. Unfortunately, you can't have a bike that more smaller and bigger. So, but this, for example, I like this style of bike because it's light. It has no luggage. It has knobby tires, and you have many of the advantages you need up on the Prudhoe Bay on the haul road. But I've seen all sorts of bikes up there, even Harley Davidsons. But it depends on your adventure style and your safety comfort zone. I've seen Gold Wings up there that should not be up there. Here's a bunch of bikes in Prudhoe Bay, and a lot of GSs, knobby tires, and sometimes that mud will cake in and under your fenders, and you need to clear it out. It just depends on how lucky you are with construction and weather. And then there's days like this where you're on chip seal and it's wide open and you wouldn't even think twice about it. But you can see how muddy that motorcycle is. Like I said, those bikes are never the same once they go to Prudhoe Bay. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of good questions in the chat here. So speaking of the mud and the calcium chloride and all that kind of stuff, how do you recommend cleaning the radiators or the motorcycles in general?
Well, there's very few places that you can stop and have an infrastructure, but Coldfoot, find a hose. Prudhoe Bay, find a hose. We used to bring on our tours, we could bring along sort of a hand pump water hose, and it would work because it would clean out the radiators. But you don't have that luxury if you're riding unsupported.
Okay. And then another good question here. Do you recommend camping this far north, or is it better to plan on hotels? Could you just talk about maybe accommodations more generally?
Oh, that's a good question. So first of all, I'm going to say this. If you're going to go all the way to Prudhoe Bay, I say do not go from Coldfoot to Prudhoe Bay and turn around and come back to Coldfoot in one day. A lot of people are enticed to do it, but you're going to get fatigued more than you think. And that's a lot of miles, and you're exposed to temperatures that you're not used to and road conditions. And I've seen more wrecks just outside of Prudhoe Bay with international travelers than anywhere else because they're pushing it. They go all the way into Prudhoe Bay, they turn around, and then they come back out again. Stay the night. You can camp anywhere, and there's lots of BLM land campgrounds and others. And put the milepost in the references. A milepost is a great reference for that highway with all of its infrastructure. Camping is no problem, but you will not camp in Prudhoe Bay. Prudhoe Bay is a different kind of animal. There's polar bears, and I am not kidding, and brown bears walking through the parking lot. You are in nature. You don't want to camp there, and none of it is public land. It's all pretty private concessions. You want to stay the night. You're going to pay a premium price. There are several hotels there, and you stay the night. Pay the money, and if you're going to stay up there, you can book a Arctic Ocean tour. You need to supply your identification a day in advance so that you do a security clearance, because it's a sensitive area. But you might as well just stay the night, check out the Arctic Ocean the next morning on the tour, and then you can head out the next day. And then everything else is going to be fine camping. You can camp in Coldfoot right there in front of the Slate Creek Inn, and there's campgrounds all the way back down.
Nice. Okay. And then we got one more question that popped up here in the chat from Nick. He's asking, how viable is this trip 2-up? Considerations to take if you do decide to ride 2-up.
It's being done all the time. It depends on what kind of rider you are. And it also comes down to how lucky you are. I can't give you a better answer than that. If you're a competent 2-up couple and you've done anything, off-road, you're going to find that it's not over the top technical. So I would encourage that behavior. But if you're not really used to it or unsure, I don't know if this is really the place that you should go.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And that's all we got for now.
Okay, this one is don't push it. And I just went through the accidents that happened just outside, either just getting to Prudhoe Bay or just leaving Prudhoe Bay. You're going to get to this point in the James Dalton Highway where it starts, and it's going to turn to dirt right around the corner, and it also gets a lot more rustic. From there on in, you're on your own. The sun is not going to go down, and a lot of people are, they don't want to open their wallet and stay in Prudhoe Bay, but I say do it, budget for it, and get a good night's sleep. Because, if you push it, this is a rider that got caught on this just a little bit by the soft side of the road, and it flipped him into the side into the bushes. The helicopter pilot landed there and said, "This is the second motorcycle in 2 days." There are EMS services out there, and they do base themselves at the pump houses along the Alyeska pipeline, and you can get help there, but it might take a while, and you don't even want to tempt it. Take your time. Don't push it. You got places to stay at Dead Horse Camp. There's a couple more places in town that you can stay, but this is a oil workers town. It's not set up for tourism, but you can stay there. You can get fed and you can get rested, and that's the number one. And then you're going to see stuff like this. So I just want to reiterate, just be on your game. You really want all of your advantages. Get rested, because you're going to be riding something like this all day. Okay, this one is be aware of the truck traffic. Originally, this is the haul road. So the reason is because of the trucks. And the trucks, they add a bit of a element to your ride. You're going to see signs like this. And, a lot of the stretches of highway are pretty open, and you won't see any trucks or anything. And you'll be going along and you think, well, I'll just stop right here in the road and I'll take a picture of those caribou. And then the next thing you know, you're off your bike and you got 2 tractor trailers with equipment you've never seen that they're hauling both ways, and they can't get by each other because you left your motorcycle on the road. And those truckers talk to each other on the CBs, and they will say, hey, we got this very insensitive motorcyclist with his bike parked in the road, and they will meet you in the parking lot in Coldfoot and give you an earful. And those truckers are all business, and they also are all throwing rocks. So when you cross with one of these trucks, get behind your windscreen. I've had mirrors broken out. I've had windscreens cracked. I put my visor down. I've been hit in the face. I had a guest get hit in the face by a rock. It's not fun. Make sure you have, steel tipped or very durable boots. Those rocks are real and they're coming. And this is a good example. This picture, that's where you can ride. And then the side of the road is not where you want to be either. So you're going to be snuggling up to these things and you're going to be riding by them. And these guys, when they're on a back haul, they're going to be going 80 miles an hour. They're going to be creeping up on you. And the etiquette is to let them pass. And they're going to throw rocks at you. And you're not going to go over to the side of the road because it's too soft. You need to kind of find that balance. So I think you're getting my point that this is not a regular ride. This is an accomplishment. It is epic on many fronts. It's very scenic, but it is not what I would call a super safe ride. This one right here, this is the Yukon River crossing, and that is a pretty steep bridge across the river, and that is a wood planked bridge. And the reason that it's wood planked is because in the winter, those ice road truckers are using chains, and the chains can dig into the surface of that road so that they can get traction in the winter. Now, in the summer, what they'll do is they'll drag mud out onto that flat wooden surface, and it becomes really icy, really glossy. And so if you lock up your brakes really quick on that bridge, you're going to find you're not stopping and your front tire will go out from you. And also that is a security zone right there too. They have the Alaska pipeline affixed to that bridge. And so if you stop, there are security cameras. They are going to tell you with the PA system to keep moving. They are watching you. And those trucks, those ice road truckers, most of them ride motorcycles. You're going to find that they're very friendly, they're very helpful, and they will help you as long as you give them room to pass or you give room when you cross with them. And they're hauling all sorts of stuff up there. And like I said, you think that there's nobody on the road, and all of a sudden there's two of these coming in opposite directions. If you're going to stop and take photos, do it in a very, very safe place off the road. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions here in the chat. First of which is a good question about the Dalton and just generally asking about, if you had to ballpark it, what is the average moving speed of a motorcycle group on the Dalton? What's a reasonable pace? How many miles could you reasonably expect to do in a day if you're riding the Dalton?
Okay. Yeah, 250 for miles is pretty normal. And then you're clipping around along at 60 miles an hour is not uncommon, depending on the conditions. If it's really nice, it'll be nothing. If it's really sloppy, you're gonna come down to 45, 50 miles an hour. And then I've seen people duck walking through really sloppy sections too. So it can throw anything at you.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have a question from Russ in the chat asking about the calcium chloride that you mentioned, Phil, and just asking, about billable damage. If you take one of our rental bikes up the Dalton Highway, what is considered normal wear and tear on the motorcycle versus what is billable damage? And Russ, I'm pretty familiar with the rental side of the business. That's my primary domain. So before I hand this off to Phil, I would just say that we will never charge you for calcium chloride buildup on the motorcycle, right? That is just normal wear and tear on the bike. If you rent a bike from us to ride up the Dalton Highway to Prudhoe Bay, we're going to charge you a $600 Prudhoe Bay surcharge, okay? And that $600 is going to cover the cost of a brand new set of knobby tires on the motorcycle for you when you go up. And it's going to cover the additional wear and tear on the motorcycle and the extra services that we need to make sure that motorcycle is ready to go for the next guy, right? And that often includes, cleaning out the radiator thoroughly, It's not uncommon that we'll have to change out brake pads on the motorcycles, right? Because that calcium chloride will build up on the brake pads and the rotors, and occasionally even chains on the motorcycle. So that is all expected wear and tear. We're not going to charge you for any of that. Do you have anything you'd
Yeah, the
like to add to
most
that?
well done, Dax. The most important is if you damage a rim, if it knocks over and breaks a mirror, those are those things that we need to make right in order to rent to the next. If you have a discolored motorcycle because of the calcium chloride, we did charge you a Prudhoe Bay surcharge for a reason. We have just lost value in our motorcycle, and we planned it that way, and we're going to clean it off the best we can and then put it back together again. And we give you fresh chains and sprockets and fresh rubber for you to make your ride. And then we're going to take all of that stuff off the bike and then prep it for the next rider. And it may not be aggressive tires for the next one. So you can see that there's a bit of thought about, making sure that that bike is right for the next rider. But yeah, we know we're sending it to the calcium chloride part of the universe.
Yeah. 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 Okay. And then we have an anonymous question here asking about the other big highway up in the North Country that starts with a D, the Dempster. So could you touch on the differences between the two? Are they same? Are they different? What's the Dempster all about?
Okay. The Dempster is the one that goes up all the way to the top, to the Arctic Ocean, to Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk through Canada. And of the two, I believe Prudhoe Bay is further north, but both of them are outstanding, iconic adventure rides. The Dempster, however, is treated with a calcium chloride that's a little different, and it's actually slicker than the Haul Road. And I personally think it's more dangerous. There is I don't know, if it takes a little rain, you literally cannot stand on that surface. It gets so slick that you may consider having to turn around. And I had to do that once. It's not an easy ride. I've had people in the past go, well, if I do Prudhoe, is the Dempster the same? And we don't allow bikes to go to the Dempster any longer. And I will say this, we had an AMA Hall of Famer go off the road on the Dempster during a slick road condition time. And that's no joke. It is slick and it is dangerous if it gets wet. There is no getting around it. Of the two highways, they're very comparable and they're both very beautiful, but I would say that the Dempster is more technical and more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if an AMA Hall of Famer went flying off the road on the Dempster, I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the conditions up there. We have one more question from Hilton in the chat, asking about wildlife. As how concerned do you need to be about wildlife if you're stopping for pictures? He heard moose can be pretty vicious animals. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, generally you're not going to have trouble with them. Generally, and if you're in a group of 2, 3 people, generally the law of the jungle is you're not going to have an issue. These anything from bears to moose, they generally don't want anything to do with you. They don't want to be surprised either. And you can camp up there. Don't keep food in your tent. That's not really the idea. But we don't have any issues. You see wildlife, you generally can stop. Make sure you stop off to the side of the road and take photos, and you'll start seeing like herds of caribou. If you get lucky, you can see hundreds of them. It's pretty dang epic. It's really cool. We've had wolves run along with us. We've had Dall sheep, uh, muskox, fox, bears, grizzlies. It's amazing. You're not going to see wildlife like that in most parts of Alaska until you get way up to the Brooks Range and above.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, that's all the questions for now.
Okay. Well, this last section is outfit your ride. And basically, I just want to say if you're going up on your own, bring tools. Make sure that you can change your tires. Make sure that you have a little bit of knowledge how to fix things, because anything and everything will break up there. It doesn't matter how expensive your bike was in the dealership. This road will challenge it with temperature extremes and also just conditions. It's tough on equipment up there. Calcium chloride will leak into your electric system somehow. If it can find a way to put a stop to you, it will. And that's why I say have a sat phone or something. We've had people stranded out there, and ice road truckers have stopped and been known to load bikes on the back of their backhaul, or at least radio for the next buddy to help. But if you're out there, you better bring a lot of time and be prepared. Try to be and also aftermarket stuff. Outfit your bike so it's nice and comfortable, so that you're ready for the ride. Don't, of course, bring stuff up high if you can. This is an example of a bike from a renter that's going to go to Prudhoe Bay, and you're going to have something like this. And we would recommend that you outfit your bike similarly. You can see in this one that the tires are not as aggressive, but that doesn't stop it from being just as Prudhoe Bay. And it's going to throw you a lot of mud. It's going to be challenging, but it is doable. And then there's a lighter bike, the Kawasaki KLR 650. That's a good one. It's a very forgiving motorcycle, or something like it, to go up there. And you don't find out until that too late sometimes that mud will fly off your front tire and then go right into your windscreen of your helmet. And that is something you want to consider, is have a rag ready in a tank bag or something, because you can get behind an ice road trucker and then you're getting a misty clay sort of thing. And if you try to clean it, it looks like an elementary school kid is doing finger paint, and then you're going to wish you had a rag really quick. And you're not going to go 30 miles an hour. You're going to pass this truck, but there's going to be a blind time to do it. Here's a bunch of bikes that are outfitted different ways, but you can see they have knobby tires, and there's no top cases. And I wanted to pause here. This will be my last pause until the end. I have a few really cool pictures I want to share with you, and I have some things to say. But do we have any questions that are still lingering around?
No additional questions at this time.
Okay, cool. I really like this picture. This is the North Slope, and this is the caribou migration, and that is a traffic jam on the Dalton Highway. How cool is that? This is in July. No, this is in June. And you can see that it is extreme up there. That's basically the moon up there. And it's sloppy and it's cold. Now, if you wait till the second half of June, it still can snow. It can snow in July. Be ready for anything. This is the North Slope. You got miles of this. Those last 70 miles from the Sag River Station, you can drop 50 degrees to the Arctic Ocean. You've noticed a lot of construction stops. There are, mosquitoes, they are there. And, the road crews are generally friendly and they have good information, but also it could be the most technical part of the ride. So this is just south of the Brooks Range, one of my favorite mountains. I had to throw it in there. It's just so beautiful. The country is wide open and wild. You want to probably spread out a little bit because you can kick up some dust if you're traveling with a group, and you're going to have plenty of room to do that. And keep your eyes out for wildlife. You'll be surprised how much you see. I like this picture. It's in Adigan Pass as you're climbing up, going north. And I don't know if there's any feeling like that. And the great thing is when you go up north, you see one perspective, but when you head south, you're going to see glaciers tucked into certain valleys and other little delights, and it's nice. It's not boring. It's actually quite spectacular. And we've been known to be up there a little bit earlier in the season where an avalanche has crossed the road after we went through. It's rustic up there. And then this is the type of, that's a chocolate motorcycle. Uh, and that's the kind of conditions you're going to have spraying all over that calcium chloride and that mud. And also sometimes forest fires. And there's nobody up there to tell you not to go. We've ridden right through them. And no one is there saying one thing or another. You just literally ride with fire on both sides of the road. And this is another example of that bridge at Yukon River. Look, if that gets wet, that is really slick. Be wary. And the last shot of the Brooks Range. And that's looking northward. So no more trees from here on out. And you get to see scenes like this. So if you're ever considering doing this, you are in for a true adventure. You're going to see things that most people never experience, not even Alaskans. And then the pipeline, of course, they are not excited if you're going to climb all over it, but you're going to have that as your travel companion for over 400 miles. And if you go all the way down to Valdez along the Richardson Highway, it'll be your companion all the way to Valdez. Yeah, you want to bring all sorts of layers, of course. Be ready for everything because anything can happen. Big country up there. And then once you get to Prudhoe Bay, you're going to notice that it is just more of a work camp than a community. It's spread out. It's easy to get lost in. There's really no points of reference because it's all horizontal out there. This is the type of equipment that they store during the summer, and then they go out in the winter in the ice and they go exploring. This is the Dead Horse Camp. You're going to find very basic workman camps. You're going to have common bathrooms. You're going to pay premium to be there. Usually comes with a meal and a hearty meal at that. Here's another hotel in town. But this is basically the infrastructure that you're going to see in Prudhoe Bay. Nothing too fancy. Everything's on stilts. Everything's double, triple insulated. You've got your workman camp decor, and here you go. That room's probably over $250 a night. And it's not fancy, but it's better than being out in the elements. I can tell you that. Get a little bit of rest. And you get to see things you've never seen before. Those are some nice ones. Up the Prudhoe Bay National Forest. And then they have a spa. So, like I said, if you give your your license, a copy of your passport ahead of time to where you're staying, you can coordinate a Arctic Ocean visit, and they will take you past a security zone in a minibus, and then they'll let you be like a child, and you can run out there and enjoy the beachfront. I guess you could say this is the Riviera of the Arctic. And if you like bragging rights, here they are. It's a big old spa up there. And then, of course, uh, oil platforms here, there, everywhere. Yep, that's downtown Prudhoe Bay. And that can be you. That is the presentation. Any last questions that are swirling around?
Yep, we just got two questions remaining here in the chat before we wrap this up. First one is, I saw a few pictures of the Arctic Circle. Is it worth going just that far? How much further is it if you want to go from the Arctic Circle up to Dead Horse?
Okay, here's my argument. Arguably, the more dangerous part of the road is before the Arctic Circle. If you make it to the Arctic Circle, then you have chip seal, which is easy riding all the way to Coldfoot. Once you get to Coldfoot, you're only a day ride from Prudhoe Bay, and you have another really good section of chip seal until you get into the arms of the Brooks Range. Once you cross the Brooks Range, that's the most beautiful part of the entire trip. And once you cross that, you've got another just over, I want to say 100 plus miles, and you ride the North Slope all the way to Prudhoe Bay. So my question to you is, if you're going to go all the way to the Arctic Circle and you've made it already on the technically as difficult part of the road there is, why don't you just keep going? Now, you can go from Fairbanks to the Arctic Circle and back again in a day. It's a very big day, but it's being done, and it can be done.
Nice. Okay. We have one of our alumni writers, Raul, in the chat. Nice to see your name pop up, Raul, asking about Wi-Fi availability along the route in the evenings. Are you going to be able to hook up to the internet when you get to your hotel for the night?
Yeah. Hey, Raul. Yeah. Every place that we stay, there's going to be Wi-Fi. Now, between the places, good luck. There's only really small places where you can get cell service, but high-speed Wi-Fi in Coldfoot, Prudhoe, if I remember correctly, Coldfoot, definitely Prudhoe, and then of course Fairbanks.
Nice. Okay. And then last question in the chat here is from Greg. Any special riding clothing to bring with you outside of the normal, riding gear?
Um, you know, I, you know, like ski gloves or snowboarding gloves, like for sure. Something that I remember we started once and it was just at freezing, and we had to chisel ice off the instrument panels of each of the bikes. So imagine how cold it was when you're going 50 miles an hour in that. Layers and layers and layers. I find like an outer rain suit is not only helpful when it rains, but it also cuts the wind and it really makes your body core. You want like a fleece vest for sure. So a lot of people like to have that, that's a baklava or whatever to cover your face and keep your neck warm. But yeah, you want to keep warm. So you might want to triple down on the layers that you usually travel with. And I usually bring 2 to 3 different kinds of gloves. And one of them is for most temperatures. And then, of course, like a snowboarding glove or something that is really burly so that you can at least feel your fingers while you're riding.
Okay, perfect. And that's all the questions we got.
Well, dang. Thank you very much for watching the webinar. We will put this on YouTube. It is a true adventure. We hope you can join us. And it's pretty exciting up there. And I want to also thank Brendan in the background for making sure that all the links and everything's running really great for this webinar. And of course, you, Dax. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got it. And thanks, guys, for coming. Like Phil said, we will throw this up on the YouTube channel. We will follow this up with a thank you email for attending. If you guys have any lingering questions, concerns about riding Prudhoe Bay, feel free to respond to that email. And let us know what you'd like to see next. We want to keep these webinars going. So if there's a location you're interested in learning more about, let us know. We might cover it. Until next time, guys, thanks for coming. Bye.